Today's video is sponsored by World of Tanks, a free-to-play online multiplayer game featuring tanks from 11 nations, 30 plus multiplayer maps inspired by real-world locations, multiple game modes, and more. World of Tanks lets you take control of one of over 600 real-life tanks to go head-to-head with players from around the world. And I mean, even before I tried this game, I was really familiar with World of Tanks because it is one of the most popular online games around, with over 180 million devoted fans worldwide. The game is always being updated, it has realistic graphics, and there's just a lot to do. If you want to try out World of Tanks, follow the link down in the description, or go to World of Tanks and use the invite code TANKTASTIC. With that, you'll get 7 days of premium, 500 gold, and a premium tank, the T127. The code only works for new players who register for the first time on the Wargaming portal. Thanks to World of Tanks for sponsoring today's video. On with the content. Hey guys, this is Eckhart. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. Today we'll be taking a look at capital ships and specifically the 5 greatest flagships in Star Wars history. Now we will be looking at Star Wars Legends, but some of these ships do also exist in canon as well. Before we begin, however, let's talk parameters. And first of all, what is a flagship? Well, a flagship is a ship which leads a fleet. Typically, it will be under the command of the highest ranking officer within that given fleet, and flagships are usually extremely powerful. So we'll take a fairly broad approach, and for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be considering the entire life of a ship. So if a vessel changes hands, as long as it remains in that sort of flagship role, I will consider all of its history. I'll be ranking ships in today's video not based on their power. I mean, in that ranking, the Eclipse Super Star Destroyer would probably win, but instead on their notoriety and their fame, their longevity, their importance to galactic history, and other sort of soft indicators. So if you disagree, make sure you let me know where I went wrong down in the comments. Also, to keep things interesting, I've made a rule that no ship type can be found on this list more than once. So there will be an Imperial Star Destroyer, you can guess which one down in the comments, but there can't be more than one. With that being said, let's go far back in galactic history to the Mandalorian Wars, and our number 5 pick for this list, the Leviathan. The Leviathan was an interdictor class cruiser, which you will definitely recognize if you've played Knights of the Old Republic. The interdictor was obviously a precursor to the Star Destroyer. It was 600 meters long and had 20 quad laser cannons, 4 turbo lasers, a variety of other weapons, and was quite powerful for its era. Really, what puts the Leviathan on this list for me is just the sheer amount of history the vessel experienced. So we know the Leviathan served in the Mandalorian Wars under Admiral Saul Kareth, and most likely was the base of operations for Jedi Revan and Malak, of course, before they fell to the dark side. The Leviathan would have been involved in many of the major battles of the war, including the Battle of Malachor V. When Revan and Malak returned from the unknown regions and began the Jedi Civil War, Saul Kareth defected and took the Leviathan with him. The ship would then serve as the flagship of Darth Malak, participating in the attack over Terrace, the eventual bombing of Terrace, and most likely destroyed at the Battle of the Starforge. Alright, so at number 4, we're moving to the other edge of galactic history and looking at the Alliance. The Alliance was the first of the Imperius class Star Destroyers. It was initially named the Imperius, and during its era was the most powerful ship in the entire galaxy. The Imperius type Star Destroyer was a general improvement over the Pelion, and was produced at the behest of Darth Krayt, who was now Emperor and fighting against both the Alliance and the remnants of the Fel Empire. The first of the Imperius line, however, was stolen by the Galactic Alliance and renamed the Alliance. The vessel would then go on to serve not only as the flagship for Admiral Gar Stanzi, but as the flagship for the entire Galactic Alliance fleet. The Alliance would go on to serve in many important battles of the Second Imperial Civil War, including the attempted rescuing of Mon Cal. And the reason why I've put this ship at 4th place is because of the perceived importance of the Alliance and how the single ship was seen as being a major force in the galaxy, perhaps more so than any other single ship on this list, with maybe the exception of one. At number 3, we have arguably the most famous Imperial Star Destroyer in history, the Chimera. The Chimera was the flagship of Grand Admiral Thrawn. Thrawn was arguably the greatest military mind in the entire Star Wars galaxy, and because of that, his flagship took on a mythical status. With the Chimera, Thrawn launched what was seen as an impossible campaign against the New Republic. He was outgunned, he had very few resources, but with the Chimera, he pushed the New Republic back to the edge of destruction. Thrawn was present in the Chimera for every key battle of his campaign, and it was on the bridge of the Chimera where he would eventually be assassinated. However, the history of the Chimera does not end there. Thrawn's protege, Gilad Pellaeon, would eventually assume control of the Imperial Remnant, and he would move his flag to the Chimera, at least for a while. The ship would be damaged. During the Yuuzhan Vong War, Pellaeon would move his flag to the Right to Rule, later operating out of the Megador and, of course, the new line of Star Destroyers, the Turbulent class. However, during the Second Galactic Civil War, Natansi Dala would show up out of nowhere to help oppose Jacen Solo with what was called the Maw Regular Fleet. It was basically ships that had been collected over time, and one of those was, of course, the Chimera herself. Here's a quote from Legacy of the Force Revelation. "It was a vessel that had been flagship to the legendary admirals of modern history and fought at some pivotal battles. The veteran ship was looking a lot tidier than it had at the Battle of Bastion. It, no she, was fully restored. Chimera," said Kaitis. By that point too, the Chimera was actually making use of experimental technology, including metal crystal phase shifters, which made it incredibly effective at that battle. It's basically just shouldering away shots and tearing apart capital ships with its incredibly powerful weapons. Anyway, at number 2 we have a Super Star Destroyer. But which one? Is it the Executor, lead ship of the class, and the ship which takes its name? Nah, I'm gonna go with Lucy, the LUSANKYA, one of the most longest serving Star Destroyers in history, and arguably the one that saw the most action. So, the LUSANKYA was the second Super Star Destroyer ever constructed, but unlike the Executor, which was roaming free across the galaxy as part of Death Squadron, it was buried under Coruscant and would serve as a private prison. The LUSANKYA most notably was used by Azani Isard, who used the ship to brainwash New Republic soldiers, turning them back into the New Republic's hands and having them execute themselves or their allies. LUSANKYA developed a very mysterious but horrific reputation, and it was only Corran Horn who actually discovered that the ship was a ship and not some prison somewhere. Upon its discovery, the LUSANKYA would actually blast its way out of Coruscant's surface and through the planetary shield, and it would serve as Isard's flagship as she would attempt to establish a mini government for herself. The ship would eventually be captured by the New Republic at the Battle of Typhera, and it would eventually enter New Republic service, notably during the Battle of Arinda. LUSANKYA's most famous moments, however, came during the Yuuzhan Vong War, where she acted as a hammer against the Vong at every opportunity, and most notably at the Battle of Borlias. Unfortunately, at Borlias, Lucy was injured beyond the point of repair, so she was stripped of all her weapons, the crew was removed, and the LUSANKYA was filled with explosives and rammed into a Yuuzhan Vong world ship. The LUSANKYA was sent out with a bang, and although it perhaps wasn't as famous as the Chimera, I would argue that it had a much larger impact because of its qualities on galactic history. Like, Thrawn could have operated out of any Star Destroyer, and he would have been just as important and just as effective. The LUSANKYA was only so good because it was this massive hidden Super Star Destroyer, and there's a bunch of really interesting stories around it. At number 1, we have the most famous flagship in galactic history, and the most famous flagship of Admiral Akbar, Home 1. Home 1 served in almost every pivotal battle of the late Rebellion and early New Republic. Admiral Akbar was a military genius, maybe not to the level of Thrawn in some aspects, but he masterminded the creation of a New Republic fleet, which had the very tough responsibility of securing an entire galaxy and defeating legions of Imperial holdouts. Although the New Republic did create several new Mon Cal ship types from the MC-80B and the MC-90, although Akbar would sometimes transfer his flag to other ships like the Galactic Voyager, Home 1 remained his personal flagship. There's not much more I can say about Home 1. It was there for almost every important battle. It powered a rebellion, and the Battle of Endor would not have gone the same without that ship present, and of course its Mon Calamari Admiral. But guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Which flagship is the best that I mentioned? Did I forget something? Especially from older Star Wars stories, the last 4 ships were all from late Star Wars timeline, so should I have included Zim the Despot ship or something else? Let me know all of that and more down in the comments. comments. Anyway guys, be safe, have a good one, and as always, may the Force be with you.